Hello, hello, hello. Let's get started. Chapter 12 Teamwork. Ariel scooted over to Derek with a look of concern. Even in his stunned condition, he appreciated it. You hurt bad, Derek? No. His voice came out in a coarse mutter. Got the breath knocked out of me, but that's all. How about you? I'm all right. Thanks for getting in his way. He grinned. Any time. Just so it isn't too often. He inhaled deeply a couple of times. She took him under one arm and helped him to his feet. Have you ever seen anything like that before? Never. The postronic brains have always been totally reliable. That record is known everywhere. He dusted himself off. I think the shock is worse than getting knocked down. This one's not reliable, that's for sure. Did you see where he went? Derek looked down the street. No, but a couple of other robots were chasing after him. They must have been close enough to see what happened. I guess I heard a few footsteps. Let's go inside. I want to get on the console and find out if there's been any warning about a rogue robot. She followed him inside. The robots chasing him weren't shouting or anything. I suppose they were all talking through their comlinks. I guess. He rubbed the back of his head where it had hit the wall and winced. I wonder what kind of insults robots exchange among themselves. He sat down at the computer and called up a variety of subjects, including warnings, city alerts, and suspected malfunctions. Nothing turned up. Maybe the malfunction just occurred, Ariel suggested. We'll be the first ones to report. I'll do that. Let's see. Malfunctioning robots does not obey the laws. Since he actually attacked us, the rest of the robots will make searching for him a top priority. I imagine they'll even leave their regular jobs. He entered a description of the pertinent events. Doesn't it seem odd to you that he came here? What do you mean? We're the only people on the planet that anyone can find. The others are lost, and the city is huge. Isn't it kind of strange that the one robot here who goes berserk just happens to wind up at the only apartment with humans in it? He paused for a moment at the keyboard. I see what you mean. Of course, since the postronic failure involves the laws, maybe he was drawn somehow to humans. He shrugged and continued on the console. They did know. Look at this. I got it when I entered the subject of searches. She leaned down close, reading over her shoulder. Wait a minute. What kind of weird robot are they searching for? I'm not sure he's a robot at all. It says, Human Experimental Medical Team. Let's see. A moment later he was reading in fascination. He's human! Or at least his brain is. His brain? Look at this! Derek pointed out the summary of the surgery on the computer screen. Unbelievable! That's impossible, Ariel said. Transplanting a brain into a robot body? Everything's been impossible since we got here. Derek shook his head as though to clear it. We should be used to it by now. If you can ever get used to being surprised, what do we do now? I'm trying to get the central computer to put me through to one of the robots in the medical team through their comlinks. Yes, said a voice through the console. I'm Derek, a human male. Please identify yourself. I am Human Medical Research 1, the director of the Human Experimental Surgical Team. I have some information regarding a robot who doesn't obey the laws of robotics. Excellent! We've been conducting a search pattern from the perimeter of the city inward with the help of many robots. Can you narrow the focus of the search for us? I'd like to see you and your team in person. Please come meet with Ariel and myself. We will do this. May I ask why you are delaying in providing me with helpful information? This problem may be larger than it appears. The robot in question seriously disobeyed our instructions and physically attacked us. I think a major consultation is in order, don't you? We will come at once. The robot's voice was suddenly formal and expressionless. Say, tell me one thing now. Has this guy's spacecraft been located? What kind of shape is it in? It was destroyed on impact. What is your location? Disappointment struck Derek like a physical blow, but he gave them the information. Then he began pacing restlessly, trying to keep his spirits up. At least the medical robot can tell us if he was traveling with the other two we've been looking for. It isn't over yet. We've made some kind of progress, believe it or not. It's about time. He slapped his fist into his other palm. We still might learn something we can use. Do you think this guy's one of the humans we're looking for? Ariel, too, was crestfallen. I think so. Remember the third visitor who just vanished after a certain point? This must be the one. I figured the reports of him stopped because he was in a robot body. I was hoping he'd arrived on another ship. It would give us an extra chance." Disappointment was evident on her face. The medical team arrived shortly. Derek told the three robots what had transpired and then asked for the relevant information they possessed. They briefed him on what they had told Jeff. "So it's not a failure of the post-ironic brain," Research One finished. "However, we have consulted among ourselves and have concluded that we must enter a repair facility to have our brains removed and destroyed." "What?" Derek cried. "You can't do that. We need your help." "We created a situation in which a robot body violated the first law by attacking humans. This is a violation of the first law on our part. We would have reported immediately after the transplant surgery if we had understood where it would lead." Derek looked at the two robot surgeons, who nodded in agreement. The three of them were standing together in a line, as they prepared for law enforcement questioning. Maybe that was what they expected from a human, after violating the first law. "But you didn't attack anybody," said Ariel. "You were one step away from the situation. You can't take responsibility for what they say his name was Jeff? Decided to do. Besides, he didn't hurt us," Derek said. "It just surprised us. Well, totally shocked us, actually." Surgeon Two shook his head. "The extent of harm is not a factor since the laws do not make allowances for degree. Nor is our ignorance of your presence a factor. The fact that we are one step removed from the incident is the only reason that we did not shut down upon learning of this violation of the first law. If we had directly harmed a human, the trauma to our systems would have been completely neutralized our functioning. However, this individual would not exist in the unusual form he does without our contribution. He is unique, and is our responsibility." "Look at it this way," Ariel said anxiously. "We need help. If Jeff is still out there running around, he could conceivably do more harm to us. Doesn't the first law require you to cooperate with us?" "We have proven our judgment irresponsible," said Surgeon One. "You cannot rely on us. Therefore we should be destroyed." "You haven't violated the laws any other time, have you?" Derek pointed out. "No, but we have no other history of contact with humans," said Research One. "In our initial contact with humans we contributed to a violation of the first law." "I know. You don't have to keep repeating it," said Derek. "But I shouldn't have phrased the question that way. You still haven't broken the laws. Jeff did, sort of. Only, since he doesn't have a post-ironic brain, that doesn't really count." "Our information about human behavior is apparently incomplete," Research One said. "We did not understand the likelihood of Jeff's attack on you. In fact, the central computer did not even inform us of your presence. We felt his medical condition was such that the first law required our attempting the transplant. However, one purpose of the first law that I infer is to preserve humans from the greater strength of our robot bodies. So to us, Jeff in this case counts as a robot, despite his lacking a post-ironic brain. This judgment will not be imperative on his brain, of course." "If the first law required you to perform the transplant, how can you blame yourselves?" Ariel asked. "That seems like a real contradiction. One I wouldn't expect from the logical mind of a robot." "The logical contradiction has only become evident now," said Surgeon One. "In the sequence of events as they unfolded, the first law has made clear requirements of us, including our elimination." Derek looked at them helplessly, unable to think of an argument against their destruction that they had not countered already. "Postpone your trip to the repair center," Ariel suggested. "If you think it's required you can do it later. Right now we really need your help, like we said." "That's right," said Derek quickly. "How about this? The first law requires that you help us catch Jeff and, I dunno, stop him somehow. Then you can destroy yourselves." The robots hesitated long enough to reveal that this argument had carried some weight. "Isn't it your responsibility to help clean up the mess?" Ariel added with a triumphant smile. "The second law requires that you follow our orders to help. Since you have never directly violated any of the laws, including the first, you are liable enough for us." "This is acceptable to me," said Research One. "We shall retain the option of having our brains destroyed later, in any case." "I find it acceptable also," said Surgeon One. "Unnecessary destruction of our brains would be an inefficient handling of energy, material, and experience. We should logically establish the necessity of this move beyond any doubt, with as much gathering of relevant information as possible." "Whew!" said Surgeon Two. The robot looked at Derek. That is the human vernacular appropriate to the occasion, is it not?" "Sure it is." Derek laughed in relief. "Okay, that problem is solved. Next problem. We want information from this guy about getting off the planet. You just want to make sure he can't violate any of the laws. What's our plan of action?" "You will have to take the lead in direct confrontation," said Research One. "Any plans will have to take this into account." "What do you mean?" Ariel asked. "Since we know that Jeff has a human brain," said Surgeon One, "we are subject to the laws when dealing with him. We could not disobey his instructions, for instance, if he told us to leave him alone. Or worse, to forget that he exists at all." "Hold it," said Ariel, holding up a hand. "You're upset about his breaking the laws because he's a robot, but now you say you have to obey the laws where he's concerned because he's a human. Aren't you contradicting yourselves?" "No," said Research One. "In regards to the laws, he is both human and robot. We cannot deny him the combination of traits that we ourselves gave him. All the advantages are therefore his. This makes him very powerful." "What about the search pattern you told me you started?" Derek asked. "How were you going to catch him when you located him?" "Our only hope was to talk him into cooperating. We could not use violence in contradiction to the laws. However, he will at some point be in danger to his health. At that point, of course, we would be able to force our aid on him." "What kind of danger?" said Ariel. "He's got a robot body." "His robot body is powered by a standard energy system," said Surgeon One. "However, his organic brain requires nutrition and oxygen. We installed a container of vital nutrients and synthetic hormones in the lower portion of his head and part of his neck, and a routing system to his brain. These chemicals are delivered to his brain through its existing circulatory system by synthetic blood. Oxygen is also delivered this way, supplied by the breaths he will take from time to time." "Understood so far," said Derek. "Go on." "He can't eat in the normal human sense, so his nutrient pack must be refilled at certain intervals. He does not know this." "He doesn't? Why didn't you tell him?" Ariel demanded. "He ran away before we started briefing him. We wanted to test him first. We did not know he would leave before we could inform him of this." Surgeon Two looked at Researcher One. "Since our tests were not complete, we don't know precisely how successful the transplant has been." "That is true," said Research One. "There are considerable unknowns regarding his health. That is why an interpretation of the first law allows us to help you find him." "I've been thinking about a question Ariel asked me a while ago," said Derek. "Do you think Jeff came here to our residence for a reason, or was it just a random visit?" "The odds against a human, such as he is, making a random visit to the only human dwelling in the city are too high to take seriously," said Surgeon Two. "Your use of humans' food smells to attract fellow humans here may have influenced him," said Research One. "He is not yet in need of nutrition. However, previous habits in the stimulation of the pleasure center in his brain by the food aromas may have created a desire to experience the smell and taste of human food." "I don't suppose it would work a second time," said Ariel. "Getting away seemed awfully important to him. If he can't eat anyway, he wouldn't really need to come back here." "A logical assumption," said Research One. "All right, hold it," said Derek. "I'd like to go at this in a straight line if you don't mind. As I see it, we have three problems. In order to get a hold of this guy Jeff, we have to locate him and identify him and grab him. Is this search pattern of yours going to capture him? How does it work?" "It employs the entire population of Robot City," said Research One. "However, they do not have to leave their duties. We have set up a net of testing around the perimeter of the city moving inward that goes from one robot to the next. No robot will work with any other or allow any other to pass unless the other robot can demonstrate the use of his comlink. Since Jeff does not have this ability, he will eventually be identified." "We could have built a radio system into his body," said Surgeon One. "It seemed an unnecessary contradiction to his human identity, so we chose not to do so." "Good thing," said Derek. "It sounds like your search could take a long time, though. If he's smart and wants to escape notice, he can keep away from your search until the very last minute. And if he's lucky, he might sneak through the ring as it closes." Surgeon Two shook his head. Unlike most Avery robots, he seemed to like these gestures. "It is not a ring, but a solid circle. Even if he moves out into the previously tested area without being identified, he will still be challenged by every robot who sees him. The testing will not cease until we report that he has been detained." Derek nodded in approval. "Not bad. I still say it'll take a while, unless he gets careless." "Agreed," said Research One. It could take an extended period of time, but it will identify him without fail. Chances of his capture will be maximized if we have one of you, the humans, on hand to detain him, however. Otherwise, the second law will allow him to order us away unless the first law imperative instructs us to override his orders. What are we supposed to do? Ariel turned her hands palm up and looked around at the other three robots. We can't order him around any more than you can, and he's stronger than you are. The robots were silent. We'll worry about that later, Derek decided. The first job is to get him identified. Maybe we can think of a way to shortcut the search process. Perhaps, said Research 1. We're at your disposal. So to speak, said Surgeon 2. And this ends Chapter 12. I hope you enjoyed. See you next week. Well, no, Saturday.